Hey there, friends. Today I'm calling this He Knew Before I Did. When we get into it, you'll see why I've chose to name it that way. But I'm glad you're here to join me today. Um, I just want to take a quick second and ask you that if you get something from this podcast today and it meant something to you, if it means something to you, if it's encouraged you or made you feel a little less alone in the season you're going through, or you know someone that could benefit from it, would you share it with them, or would you take a moment and leave a review? Doesn't have to be long, even just a line or two. You can leave one on the podcast platform that you're using, or you can head on over to my website and drop a note there. Reviews help other women find the space, women who might be sitting exactly where you were when you first stumbled onto this little corner of the internet. And so if you don't mind doing that, I'd appreciate it. And again, if you don't mind sharing it with a friend, that helps it become more visible for others. And so I thank you for that. I appreciate it. Now let's get into it. I want to talk to you today about something that I didn't fully understand while I was going through it until I was on the other side of it. Isn't that the way it happens just so often? Um, God was already working on my behalf before I even knew I was having trouble. Um, there was a season in my life when I was a single mother, and if you've ever been around here for any length of time, you know I don't talk about the details in a way that is going to be performative. It's just I don't know how to be. I'm just going to be just my raw self. So there was a season where the financial pressure was real. Bills that I couldn't pay. Um, I was struggling to pay my invoices, my bills. I had a refrigerator that was running low and cupboards that were running low, a bank account that reflected none of my hopes and definitely had all my fears filled in it. Um, what I what I do remember most from that time was the feeling of being behind, like I was always chasing something that I couldn't catch. I'd make a plan, the plan would fall apart. I'd think I had a handle on things, and then something unexpected would happen. I'd get an extra invoice. I'd have, that unplanned broken freezer would go out, or a flat tire, something that you weren't planning, an expense that you just didn't have in your budget. And the way I was living at that time was very tight budget, so everything had to be on the budget. So a situation, would come up that I just hadn't seen coming, and I'd be right back at zero again. So one of the hardest parts of that season was looking back on it later and realizing that I was praying for things God had already put in motion. And a lot of times we don't realize that when we're going through the middle of things. So I was asking God for things, and He'd already set it into motion before I even sat down to pray about it. A person would show up to help me, a resource would come through, an unexpected kindness would happen. And when I traced the timeline back, when I actually looked at when things were arranged, when the phone call came or somebody knocked on the door, it was always before I had even reached my breaking point. Like He'd already measured the distance of my need and had prepared the answer. And it wasn't after I cried, it wasn't after I begged. It was He was preparing before. Um, I think I've shared, before an incident where I was things were tight, and I literally there was nothing left in the cupboards, and I thought, I don't know, we were out of what are those little noodles called? The little packages, you could get them for 10 cents a package back then. We were out of them. And I thought, how am I going to feed my child? And the school principal showed up with $75 and said somebody had brought it to him and asked him to bring it to me. And I didn't even know this principal, and So it's just amazing. God is already taking care of me. And that's not a small thing. That's the character of God. That's who He is. He's not a God who scrambles. He doesn't look at your situation and say, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." He's never surprised. He knew before you were born the days you'd be walking through right now. And He was always preparing. I mean, He was always prepared, already prepared. I'll get it spit out in a second. So if you're in the middle of something hard right now, I want you to hear this. He already knows the provisions that you're praying for. There's a very good chance that He's already set it in motion. You just can't see it yet from where you're standing. You're too close to the situation. And I don't mean that in a cliche manner. That's just the truth that I've lived and what I've seen. And for me, I leaned on the scripture, Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And I cling to that scripture. I know some of you have heard it so many times, it's like wallpaper. You see it on coffee mugs, you see it on Instagram posts, you scroll right past it because you see it so often and it's just become dull to you. But I want you to think about that scripture today like it's the very first time you've heard it. Because the part that really gets to me and I really have to stop and think about every single time are the first two words where He says, "I know," not "I hope," not "I'm working on it," but "I know." He knows the plans. They're not up in the air. They're not subject to how badly your week went or how much you cried on the way home. He knows. In past tense certainty, He knows. And those plans are to prosper you, not to harm you. So whatever you're waiting on right now, He already knows how it ends. And it ends well. At least it ends to His term, the way He sees it's best for you. You know, one of the things that I've discovered on the other side of those hard seasons is that God doesn't just provide, He heals. And sometimes the healing takes a little longer than the provision. So if you've been through something difficult and you find yourself still, carrying the weight of it, even when the circumstances have changed, I'd love for you to check out my course. It's called God's Healing Through the Scars. You can find that on the website. It's a space where we walk through what it looks like for God to do something beautiful with the parts of your story that still hurt. Not to erase them, not to pretend that they didn't happen, because they certainly did happen, but to let Him in to actually do the healing from the inside for you. You can find it on my website, and any of my social media accounts have links to that course, as well as to any of my free downloads that you can access as well. So I thank you for spending this time with me today. Again, if the episode encouraged you or if it reminded you of something that you needed to remember, I would be so grateful if you'd share it with someone else or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts at. Your words help other women find this space, and sometimes one episode is all it takes to remind somebody that they're not alone. And I want you to be able to rest in the truth that He already knew and He's already working. So I'll see you the next time, friend.